Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us on another episode of the Mystical Wellness Podcast. Today, I'm joined by a personal friend of mine who is Leon Southgate. I'm just going to read his bio, which is here. And Leon Southgate is an Orgone Energy and consciousness researcher with over 20 years of published writing and investigation experience. He holds one of only 2 master degrees in the world focused on Orgone Energy, and he originally trained as a nurse in Liverpool, later to become a Chinese Medical Acupuncturist, and earned a master's in 2002, uncovering strong parallels between Chinese medicine and Wilhelm Reich's Orgone theory. Leon's conducted a 72-person double-blind study on orgone accumulators and replicated Reich's ORANUR experiment in 2017. His work appears in the Orgone Journal, the European Journal of Chinese Medicine, and on his Substack, which is orgoneandconsciousness.substack.com. Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful. Leon, thank you so much for joining me. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. That was a lot in that bio there. So what have you been up to? Do you want to go back to the beginning and tell us how you got started working with all this orgone, and or wherever you want to go is absolutely perfect.
Well, right back to the very beginning was my dad being a psychotherapist in London, setting up an institute for psychotherapy and a school for psychotherapy in attachment-based theory. It was around, and part of his work was based on Wilhelm Reich's Orgone Energy, which Reich was a student of Freud, and he went down a subtle energy path, whereas Freud, they were on the same path originally, and Reich was one of Freud's star students in Vienna. And then Reich followed the subtle energy, and Freud psychologized everything. And then it's a long story, but they meet at the end as well. The psychology goes back into the subtle energy right at the end of Reich's work. But my dad was interested in group dynamics, and then that took him to psychotherapy. And the psychotherapy he was always taking from different places, like even the bizarre, less known French analyst Lacan, and all sorts of places, and the attachment theory and evolutionary theory. But Reich was a central influence on his work. So there was always orgone books on orgonomy, which is the science of orgone, and books on Reich as a child. So I'm kind of like a second generation orgone person. But then I knew about orgone from a young age, like had an orgone blanket, which I in my dad's Freud room, which gave me very vivid dreams.
So when I think of orgone, I think of these pyramids. I don't know if you can see
Right.
that. That's what I
Yeah.
think of. So is that what we're talking about here? Or are we talking about something else?
Well, those pyramids were a secondary creation of orgone. The Reich's original devices were a battery-like layered orgone accumulation device, and then sometime more recently, that people tried using a matrix to accumulate orgone. So you've got metal and resin in a matrix, and that was called orgonite. It does accumulate orgone. I've tested it. Both types of devices work, but the original orgone accumulating devices were a battery layering effect, and then the resin type ones came later. But the resin ones only work if you got enough metal in them, and I've tested them. I've tested their orgone charge, and it doesn't seem to vary much upon shape. It seems to be more the composition and the size. But if you want really strong orgone charge, what's called an ORAC, which is an orgone accumulator. ORAC is ORAC, short for orgone accumulator. They're probably the strongest way of accumulating orgone, as it were.
Have you got anything that you could show us as well? Or
Yeah, I mean, you can probably, you might just be able to see the orange blanket through the kitchen
No,
door.
I can't see. It's too bright. It's too bright. I
Right,
can't see.
right. I can get an orgone tube.
Yeah.
Just give me a second, and I'll get one. I've got a very large orgone cabinet in the kitchen, and then uh, this this here is an orgone acupuncture tube,
Oh, wow.
and it's got about 300 layers of plastic and metal foil around an iron or steel tube in the middle, and then one end's blocked off and the other end's open. So you can hold that over an acupuncture point, say. And well, I use it to make a concentration of energy within the orgone box so that I can like do experiments with it. Like, because I have it upright in the larger cabinet, and then you get like a vortex of energy above it, like you would above a large pyramid. And so I do like experiments with consciousness with that, or with moving pendulums and things like that. And this just looks like an ordinary blanket, but it's got steel wool and sheep's wool inside, and you can put that, say, over your shoulders to increase your orgone charge, or over your tummy. The most effective use of subtle energy in the quickest use of it is for burns treatment, that they respond very quickly to orgone. But the on orgone and consciousness, I've recently, I know it's quite a long title, but I couldn't really think of anything shorter. So you got the word orgone, and then the word and the word consciousness. And if you put that into Substack, you'll find my site. And I've got everything I've ever done since. I've been studying orgone pretty consistently since about 1999. And I've on the Substack, if you go to my first article on the Substack, that has links to everything I've ever done, and a little bit about what I've done. But the main thing recently is the first time in subtle energy that there's orgonomies being published consistently since 1939. The only there's nothing like it in subtle energy. It's got 85 years of continual publishing. The problem was it wasn't very, the journals were there on paper, but it was hard for people to look through it online. So I've organized all there's some 3,500 journal articles on orgonomy as a whole, but maybe 10% of that is actual research, like experimental research. And I've taken pretty much every single experimental paper that's ever been published and organized it into 4 overviews. So you can look through the entirety of orgone research, whether it's cloudbusters, which affect the weather, or the energized orgone, which is called ORANUR, which is orgone that's stimulated by radioactivity or electrical means. Then the microorganism, which is halfway between non-living and living. And that was how orgone was discovered, because Reich knew that there was something wrong with biology, that it missed out a whole chunk of itself. Like cells, like a normal cell in a human would be like a jumbo jet. So modern biology is saying that there's no transport before jumbo jets. Like cars don't exist, bicycles don't exist, walking doesn't exist. But all you've got is jumbo jets and spacecraft. Nothing else is real. And so Wright knew that wasn't right, and spent maybe 10, 5 years really looking into it in depth. And he discovered this intermediary vesicle halfway between living and non-living. And it may not even have DNA. It's literally just a plasma with a membrane that pulsates. And conventional microbiology has rediscovered this entity and called it different names, but they don't fully understand all its properties. And they don't, even the people like Kaufman and others who know about terrain theory, they don't understand that the exosomes that they see can be created from non-living matter as well as living matter. Like when your cells break down into exosomes, that's one thing, but also even a piece of wood can break down into what is similar to an exosome. But anyway, I've gone off the track a bit there. But the thing is that these tiny little particles, maybe a little bit smaller than a bacteria. You could get, it's a small bacteria, you could probably put a couple of dozen of these little particles inside a small bacteria. And one type of these intermediary vesicles called bions that had a very strong radiation. They were made from sand accidentally, like a lot of big discoveries that happens accidentally. And the bion radiation is what led to the discovery of orgone, because you couldn't contain it. Wright tried to contain this strong radiation coming off the bions with a metal box, and that didn't work. And he knew that anything like rubber gloves in the laboratory seemed to absorb the radiation. And so he tried a box of wood and metal, and then found that accumulated the radiation from the environment. So that was how the layering effect. But batteries have layering, and nuclear reactors have layering too. So it is a common thing to gather energy, because one layer affects the energy one way, and then the other layer affects it the other way. So you get an increased direction of orgone going that way, rather than towards the center of the box, rather than outside. The matrix accumulating process is somewhat similar, and it definitely has an effect. I'm trying to get the orgone, the right traditional right orgone researchers and the orgonite people to talk to each other a bit more, and because it's both are valid ways of accumulating orgone. And a pyramid also is another way of shapes accumulate orgone. Oh, I can't hear you now.
That sounds really fascinating. Tell me more. Tell me more.
Where were we up to on that? On the research?
We were just talking about what the energy was and how it was originally found.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit more about its applications and the kind of research that you've been doing.
Well, I started off with, I was training in acupuncture at the time when I remembered my orgone background with my dad. It was originally Peter Reich's Book of Dreams that got me into, well, actually that was as a teenager. So as a child, my dad told me about orgone, and I used to sleep on the Freud couch at the weekends when I stayed with my dad in London, and had the orgone blanket on at night, and it gave me very vivid dreams. That was how I knew orgone was real as a child. So then the next time I interfaced with orgone research, as it were, was Peter Reich's book. I was playing piano in my dad's front room, and for some reason my dad kept the Reich books on the same level as my head would be on the piano stool, so turning round, so I could scan the orgone books quite easily. And Peter Reich's Book of Dreams took my attention as a teenager, and I read that through and was quite impressed with it. It's a beautiful book, but Peter's a very quiet fellow. He's not been much involved with orgonomy, apart from as a child and a teenager, and then as a very young adult, writing this amazing biographical book about his life with his father, including the most intense period of Reich's life, when Reich went to the Arizona desert with the first desert cloud busting expedition. Peter was actually there helping with that, which is an amazing thing for a teenager to go through.
Yeah, that's quite interesting, because in Arizona we know there's those deep underground military bases, isn't there? Yeah. So yeah, I guess he probably wasn't looking for that kind of thing.
He didn't know about that. He knew about UFOs, but he didn't know about deep underground bases.
Yeah, I'm quite fascinated by the idea of cloud busters, because the people that make this pyramid, which is from Shungite, they also make a cloud buster. So tell us more about that. What does that do?
Well, cloud busters had a separate origin to you. With orgonomy, you had psychiatry, biopsychiatry, then you had bions and biology. The radiation led to the orgone accumulators, and that was the kind of end of that evolution. Reich knew a few facts about orgone. He knew it was attracted to water, and he knew that tubes affected it, because he had a telescope at Moose Lukmiguntik Lake, where he had a cabin in Maine. Maine is beautiful. It's like Canada, and it's north of New York. And he moved out of New York and set up his laboratories in Maine, not far from the Canadian border. And before the laboratories were built, he had a cabin overlooking this beautiful lake surrounded by forests. And sometimes he'd take a telescope and look at the energy waves above the water. And he noticed that if he moved the telescope, it would move the energy waves. So I think your
That's
voice,
okay. Don't worry about
back.
me being muted.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't worry. It's because sometimes I have a lot of noise where I am. So I'll come on and off. It's fine.
All right, that's fine. So he took the telescope and noticed that it moved the orgone waves. So he put that piece of knowledge together with the knowledge that orgones attracted to water to make the cloudbuster. But the cloudbuster didn't happen until 1952, which orgone was discovered in 1939. So it was quite a time after. And people had been having treatments in orgone accumulators for many years by that time. So it was a result of the ORANUR experiment, which was ORANUR stands for Orgone Against Nuclear, and that was where he took a super ORAC, which was a 22-layer orgone accumulator, and precipitated it with in the old days, in early 20th century states, people used to experiment with radium, and you do treatments with radium needles. Up to 15 milligram of radium would be just placed on the body, or experiments with radium charging water and drinking it, or all sorts of things. They thought radium was a miracle material, and it is. It's Ra, the sun god's own material in some ways.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So what is radium, just like a radioactive material then?
Yeah. Radium is like the concentration of uranium, which you can dig out the ground. So
Yeah.
uranium ore, you concentrate it and you get radium. And
Mm.
the Native Americans used to know about Orgone and ORANUR. They used to take radium paint and paint it on their bodies for rain dancers,
Wow.
which is a form of human cloud busting. So that they actually use their own bodies to do
Oh,
cloud
that's
busting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Right. What are they trying to make of the rain?
Well, they could do either.
Yeah.
You can with cloud busting. It depends where you point the tubes,
Mm.
because going back to the ORANUR experiment, after the ORANUR experiment, Reich had a super overcharge of orgone over the laboratories, and it created clouds that wouldn't move,
Mm.
black, negative energy clouds.
Oh, I see.
And so he put together the knowledge of tubes and the knowledge that they're attracted to water. And I think he just took a bunch of tubes that he found on the somewhere on the laboratory site, because it was a big site, and
Mm.
put six copper tubes together, ground them into a well, and pointed them at the clouds. And immediately, one of the doctors who trained with Reich was with him, Dr. Baker. And Dr. Baker remembered that moment the whole of his life. So said it immediately punched six holes in the cloud above, were Organon at that time. And,
That's
and
amazing.
and that was the very first instance of cloud busting, Dr.
Mm.
Baker and Wilhelm Reich, and that would have been 1952. So the ORANUR experiment was 1951, and then so about a year to a year and a bit later, cloud busting was invented out of necessity,
Mm.
because these door clouds, as they're called, for deadly orgone, that they just wouldn't go. And
Yeah.
so cloud busting, and any tubes are very strong in that they channel orgone and
Mm.
subtle energy.
I have it's a wah wah tube. So it makes
Mm,
sound. It's got like it's been designed and cut a certain way to make the wah 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 kind of noise. And I work with
mm,
this.
yeah.
I have a big one as well that's on a handle. So I
Mm.
do work with tubes, but mainly for sound healing.
Well, sound and that's the very latest area of research that I'm looking at, is
Mm.
how subtle energy creates sound. Well, that's
Okay.
a known area. It's called RKO acoustics, like, because it's known that stone circles create sounds. But
Yes, yes. So I'm going to Glastonbury in a few
mm,
weeks' time, but I don't go to Stonehenge because I think the energy there is very reversed. But I do like to
mm,
stop off in Avebury, and Avebury is like the whole town is within the stones, isn't it?
yeah.
So yeah, so I can't wait to go there. We're going to do that on our journey back right at the end of July. So that's
Oh,
going to be good.
that's nice. You're going to the conference there,
The Goddess Conference is on, but I'm just going
right?
to the very first, like a fringe event at the start of the Goddess Conference. We're
Yeah,
going to like a priestess temple day. Yeah. How
yeah.
do you know about that conference? Or is it another conference?
Well, it might be another conference in the
Yeah.
area that Nick Hayes, the bioform researcher, because
Mm.
that's related to orgone research, the
Yeah.
plasma bioforms, because
Yeah.
he's uses cloud busters to create an energy attraction, and then it makes it more likely for bioforms to be seen in that area,
Mm.
and then he photographs them. So
Yeah.
he's talking at one of the conferences.
Okay. Yeah. It might not be the Goddess Conference. It's generally really divine feminine energies, but I'm sure that there's
Mm,
loads of conferences all the time around Glastonbury, isn't there? I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to reconnecting with the Stones, which I've done probably about
mm,
4 times, 3 or 4 times. I always have an experience. The very first one I had, put my hand on the stone and I got like a bolt of lightning down my spine.
mm.
So that was really interesting. Yeah, so it's
Yeah, I
always
bet.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one time I went to a stone circle in Cumbria, and
Mm.
I took one of the orgonite pieces that I charged in the
orgone box.
Yeah.
So the, the orgone box has been supercharged into what is a ORANUR box. So the piece of orgonite had a really high charge, and I placed it on top of one of the stones in this stone circle, and the whole uh, because of the electrosensitivity that I have, I can hear hums, but
Yeah.
I've recently found that orgone creates a hum as well. And after I put the ORANUR charged orgonite on top of the one of the stones in the circle, the whole circle started humming, and I could see like a blue line of light coming up from the stone.
I'm just looking on the map for there's an area that I've just come into my mind. I want to ask you about. I can't think what it's called now, and it's like a circle mound, and it's not that far from us. Maybe like 2 hours drive. Can you think what I'm talking about?
I've heard of the mounds in Ireland and in the US.
Well, Ireland as in Newgrange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to Ireland at the end of August, but I'm not sure I'll get to Newgrange, but I would love to. I'm just trying to find where is this one, because it's kind of at the point where the ley lines meet, with the lines going down and going across from the north of Wales. But I forget what it's called now. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, I've been told that there was a stone circle and mound type researcher that I spoke to, and he was saying that there's a ley line that crosses on a church not far from here that I should go and visit. It's only something like 25 to 50 miles away.
Yeah, there's loads. All of our churches are on ley lines. Even my old studio is on a ley line. You know, it's been closed for a year now, my studio. It's been a year. Yeah. Isn't that mad? I know, right?
The one in Birkenhead?
Yeah. So let me just see if it's this one. Oh, Arbor-Low. I'm talking about Arbor-Low. Have you been to Arbor-Low? Which is south of Sheffield. And that is like a circle mound. It's built up and the stones have fallen down.
Right.
And that's it's right on the kind of like the ley lines crossing. So that would be great for us to go and do an experiment or something in Arbor-Low.
Yeah, yeah.
It's near the Nine Ladies Stone Circle, which is near Matlock and Bakewell.
Right.
So yeah, Arbor-Low.
Yeah, I think this that sounds similar to this place this guy was saying. I think Uffington Church was. So it's on two of the main ley lines crossing nearby.
Let me just check them up. Yeah, I want to do some out and about grid work. It's been a while since I've actually been anywhere. Although I'm about to have an ankle surgery, so I'm probably not going anywhere for a couple of months. But no, I'm not sure where that is. What was it? Uppington?
Uffington, I think it was.
Uffington.
UFF.
Okay, hold on. So no, I'm not sure I'm getting it. We'll do some research into that and see where that is. Yeah, well, that'd be really cool. But it must be somewhere near, because we've got the main Albion line coming down. So if it's on that, then it must be somewhere like south of Manchester or yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. Anything to do with stones, I love it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, well, that's a key area for me going forward. Sound, because there seems to be a sound. Well, it's taken me about a couple of years maybe to be able to distinguish between the hum that electromagnetic fields make.
Yeah.
If you're electrosensitive, sometimes you can hear hums from phone towers and from other equipment.
And you're very electrosensitive, aren't you? You're really sensitive.
Well, it started settling down because I had to go to the conference, the recent Orgone conference in the States. I had to really tackle it. Like there was no way I could attend it a
Yeah.
few months before I was going, it had flared up. And after years of trying, I have found a way of keeping it in check, which,
Mm.
and I've discovered what it is too. It's a global inflammation. That's why it's so complicated, because the whole body is inflamed with electrosensitivity.
Yeah.
So hundreds of different things help and hundreds of different things hinder, because anything that reduces inflammation will reduce the electrosensitivity, because
Mm.
basically your body gets pushed over its threshold, and then any electrosensitivity then pushes you up. So you have to either be in an environment that's got no EMF, or you
Yeah.
have to push the whole body's inflammation down below that threshold.
Mm.
And then, like, I'm still more sensitive than most people, but
Yeah.
there's a method I found works for me. I don't know if it works for other people,
Mm.
but the cold water therapies
Okay.
seem
Yeah.
to push the body's inflammation down enough to actually reduce the overall electrosensitivity, and that enabled me to get to the conference without too much trouble. Like, ironically, I got all the way to Los Angeles and back without the electro flaring up too much.
Oh,
Uh,
that's good. I thought it would be worse in America. I really did, because there's just so
well,
much crap out there.
well, strangely enough, the the long haul plane flights are not too bad, because
Yeah.
most people don't use their phones on a long haul flight. They watch the I
Mm.
don't know what the other carriers are like, but
Yeah.
the, the one I the company I was with, their entertainment's brilliant. So
Mm.
most people just watch the little screen on the back of their TV with a
Yeah.
plug-in headphone. So uh, that that was fine for me. So I switched mine off, and
Mm.
I got given an extra seat, so I wasn't right next to someone. And so the flight was all right, and the the people doing the scanners were very good. Like, I
Yeah.
explained to them about the electrosensitivity, and they were okay with me having a pat down.
Oh, okay. That sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it?
Well, I didn't mind. It's better than. Have
So
you
you just went
seen?
up to them and said, "Look, I'm really electrosensitive. You know,
Yeah.
please, can you just wand me down?" Yeah.
Well, they get one of the in LA. That I think they're used to it in LA, because
Yeah.
they just said, yeah, that's fine. We'll go and get the manager. And I
Yeah.
had to wait 10 minutes, and then the manager came along and did a
Yeah.
pat down and the various checks, and that was fine.
So last year, when I was working at the nuclear processing plant, I don't work there anymore. I left in
Mm,
December. They had these additional scanners to so that you'd walk by it or stand in front of it, and it would highlight, frequency coming from a mobile phone, like a
mm,
hidden device. And so I gave the guy everything. I gave him my phone. I gave him everything, and I stood in front of this scanner,
mm.
and it still picked up on frequency coming out of my knees,
Gosh.
and they had no idea about RFID chips or anything like that, right? So I'm looking at
Mm,
this thinking, okay, there's definitely something implanted in my knees, and they're just looking at me like, it must be malfunctioning, and I'm thinking, no, I know why it's there. I know it's definitely implants or something, but
have,
they couldn't explain it, so they gave me everything back and let me in.
mm, yeah. Well, have you heard about the nanotech giving off Wi-Fi signals? Have you ever
Yeah,
investigated that,
yeah. No, I haven't investigated it.
or
Hold
heard
on, I'm
any?
thinking of something you might know about, but I don't know how to say it.
Well, people say you can pick it up using your phone to check for Bluetooth signals.
Yeah, I mean, I really would like to get my body scanned because I know I have targeting. My targeting
Mm,
pattern's quite stabilized these days. I try not to sleep that much at night anymore, because I find that when I do and I allow myself to get that relaxed, I get blasted and my bones get targeted and get pain. So I sleep less at night and a little bit more in the day. I think I seem to be a bit more protected in the day, or it's just not on the right schedule, right?
mm.
So I don't have as much targeting. What's this word? I can't. I'll have to come back to that. But I had a word. There's something with this little tiny like micro. Parasites. Can't think of the word, but it's never mind. Yeah, well, I would love to have a body scan. I don't know anybody in the UK that does that. I know there's services in America that will do that and trace back these signals to labs and universities and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I've seen some. Well, just to jump right back to what we were saying was my research. Well, it ties in here, so it's a good point to jump back. The first set of formal research I did was looking at orgone and acupuncture, whether orgone is whether the acupuncture process is affected in reality by orgone. So I did a double-blind placebo-controlled study, and and it showed that acupuncture is affected by orgone accumulating devices when it's attached to the acupuncture point. But so I've worked as an acupuncturist over the years, and one of the times I was doing acupuncture for a family in not well. I was treating the whole family. I won't say where they are, but some of them had participated in that popular experiment that went on. And one lady in particular, so some people were talking about microscopic nanotech that actually looked like an octopus, and I'd seen micro photographs of these, and I saw a macro version of it. That the grandmother was complaining of problems in her eyes since this everything had gone on. And she had one of these tiny, you could see some kind of what I thought was an accumulation of nanotech in her eye. And I think subtle energy works opposite to some of this nanotech energy, and that would tie in with some stuff that I've been reading recently about different types of subtle energies. But
do you think the body's naturally trying to repel it? It's trying to work against it?
Yeah.
Well, foreign bodies. Yeah.
I found with people having after effects that are struggling, I do acupuncture treatments that expel pathogens, and I used every single pathogen expelling point on the body virtually, well, bar one that I couldn't get to. And then I did acupuncture all around her eye, and it solved whatever eye problems she was having.
So this is traditional Chinese medicine, just to make everybody aware. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, that sounds good.
I mean, I have done orgone acupuncture.
Yeah.
I tend to just use traditional Chinese.
Yeah. What I have noticed lately is this on the right side of the face here, where the cheekbone is, there seems to be an accumulation here. And it seems to be like, it's not just me. I've had it removed a few times, but it keeps coming back. So I'm not sure what that is. It's like a tension that comes in, but it feels like it's not right. Yeah. So is that a particular point on the face?
Well, there's a few points around there. You've got Tai Yang here, which is a very powerful point. One of the strongest Yang points on the body. And you've got a stomach point here.
Okay.
So yeah, there's quite a lot going on there.
Yeah, so it could just be my body, but it's like, you know, in Star Trek Voyager when Seven of Nine's got that implant. That's how it feels like. There's an implant on my face there.
Do you still have the
hearing aids?
The Wi-Fi hearing aid?
Yeah, the Bluetooth hearing aids. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that might affect that bone, because that would probably be the main bone that any EMF would travel down.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've not thought of that before. In the Access Consciousness hands-on therapy I do, on the right side face, this is hopes and dreams around there. Hopes and dreams. So so we activate those touch points for hopes and dreams. But this feels different. But yeah, it could be definitely like the EMF build up getting into the cheekbone there. I'll have to think about that. Yeah. I've been working with salt a lot more to detox. Yeah.
You can. There's a new Well, you can use cloudbusters medically in a
Yeah,
number of ways, and it's a very easy thing that people can do at home.
yeah.
You could literally just get a few steel, like from you could use from the steel tubes
Mm.
from tents,
Oh yeah.
and put a few of those in a bucket, uh, and aim the tubes at any area that's got stuck energy, or
Mm.
in aim it at your aura. But
Yeah,
one tries not to touch the tubes too much
yeah.
because they can pick up the negative energy from the
This
environment.
this is a 963 Wawa
Yeah.
tube, and this you hear that?
No.
No?
Mm,
Oh, okay. Well, it literally just goes wah 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 wah. So maybe I
uh,
just need to blast this up my face.
mm. Yeah, you could do, but you've not got a circuit there. If you're holding
No,
it, the energy is going back into you.
true.
Whereas, and also, if you want to withdraw negative energy,
Mm,
you wouldn't really want it being in the tube, because then you
no.
might touch it at some point and then withdraw the energy back into yourself.
Mm.
So if like with a full size cloud buster, so sometimes the ones there's ones that can affect the weather over a whole country, and those ones it's better to not even be standing within 20 foot of them if you can.
How big would that be, that cloudbuster? Would it be really big?
Yeah, it would be maybe 12-foot long pipes,
Mm.
and they're extendable usually. Reich had ones that were mounted on a truck, uh, like a 4x4 pickup truck type of thing,
Yeah,
and the tubes could be extended from 6 foot to maybe 12 foot, and then
yeah.
it had a mechanism that would to allow it to be aimed at any point, and then big thick cables that would go into a lake. The
Oh.
military actually had even larger cloudbusters that they kept. You know that air base where they had the Rendlesham Forest,
Yeah, I
that
think so. Yeah,
where they had the the UFO incident, the big one in the early 1980s.
yeah.
Well, there's two military witness testimonials, at least two.
Mm.
I know of two that uh, say that they had military cloudbusters there that were even bigger. That
Wow.
and that was partly why there was a very strange hurricane in the early 80s. It
Mm.
probably might have been caused by those cloudbusters,
Yeah.
and they may be using them now to make sure that the weather's nice in Wimbledon. So,
It's quite funny. I mean, here it looks pretty blue here, and the clouds
mm,
look like regular clouds today. But two nights ago, when I was getting that big attack coming in, the
mm,
sky was just white. It was just not real. I took
yeah,
photos and sent it to friends, and they were like, "Nope, that's entities."
mm,
No, and they got to work on it. So it's just insane. Yeah, I need to get a cloud buster. I think just to have over my house, just to have here to. I'm trying to set up like a pillar of light, like
yeah.
around my property. Yeah.
Well, the thing with cloudbusters is like the small ones, people set them up and bury them in the garden, and
Mm.
then they become like, because every tree cloudbusts as well.
Yeah.
The capillaries in the tree act as a cloudbuster, and
I
it's
love that.
rooted into the ground. But if you put a small device in it, it's acting like a tree. But
Mm.
if you want to actually affect the weather, it's best to move them a little bit, not keep them in one place,
Right.
and to wear gloves if never to handle the tubes.
Right.
And the more water that's connected to the tubes, the stronger the pull. You can treat yourself with a mini cloudbuster, which was called the medical doorbuster. That was invented a few years after the cloudbuster. I think
Mm.
about 1955, around about then. I've recently discovered that there's a new use for them, a spiritual use.
Oh, okay.
If you're being troubled by negative entities, you can set up a mini cloudbuster in your bedroom and point it at one corner, and
Yeah.
it makes it uncomfortable for entities to stay in your bedroom. But
Oh, we need to do this for me. We need to do this, I think. Yeah.
mm,
Because
but
I'm getting a bit more popular and visible, shall we say. I've been camouflaged for a long time, and now that I'm coming out, it's like everyone's like, "Oh, she's here." So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's a double-edged thing,
yeah,
isn't it? Really, because like so part of me that like there's a podcast that I listen to, and I know he's really into orgo, and it's
yeah.
like, oh, should I contact him? And then part of me holds back because like
You don't
I'm
want him to get targeted because he's your favorite podcaster.
well he already is because I
Okay.
know I know
Yeah,
I know that intelligence listens to him because
yeah,
you get all the main speakers in every area.
yeah. We're all
So
monitored. We're all monitored.
yeah,
Yeah, even my little show is monitored because I've got my own separate monitoring anyway. And
yeah,
I don't mean to invite people on who are targeted. It just that's the most interesting stuff, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, uh, it really is. We live in a panopticon, don't we?
Yeah,
We live on the farm,
yeah,
so it really can't be any other way. So we
yeah.
just have to trust in our own higher powers.
Exactly. I
But,
agree. I agree.
so
So
I probably will give him an email at some point.
yeah, I think it's good that you're trying to connect everybody that works with the Orgone
Mm,
technology.
mm.
Yeah, that's really good. It's very noisy here because I'm on the main road. And but that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean your Substack looks so good. I have subscribed as a free member. But I see that you do take pledges on there as well.
Well,
And
I wasn't
oh,
intending.
my friend Soma Arara's
All right.
followed you as well, and
Oh,
she's an
cool.
Irish, well, she's a
Yeah.
British living in Ireland, and she's a
Mm,
Palladian channel. So
right.
she's followed
Mm,
you, and we do quite a bit of work together. I'm going out there in August, so
mm.
yeah, so she's followed you because we're all on Substack. I just didn't realize you were on Substack, so I
Yeah.
followed
So
you now. Yeah,
I used to have a research website called Orgone Continuum, and
yeah,
then I ran into a few problems financially a few years back, and
yeah,
it was quite expensive to keep the website up, and just everything went haywire, and I let it go.
yeah,
But you can actually find it on. I've got links to the articles that I still like from
yeah,
my Substack, but I just find Substacks really handy. So
yeah.
I've got everything on there now.
I'm
Uh,
just looking at one of your articles, and it's about
yeah,
AI. Could we touch on
yeah,
AI a little bit?
sure.
Yeah.
That's one of my main interests because
Mm,
well, for 20 25 years I've been interested in orgone.
mm,
Particularly, it's been my main focus for the
yeah.
last quarter century. It started off with orgone and acupuncture, and then I wanted to do, which I did as an MSc, which is one of only two MScs in orgone. And there's a cloud busting MSc
Wow.
of James DeMio's. It's amazing the amount of evidence for cloud busting.
Mm,
There's really good evidence, and if you go to my Substack, I've got four overviews of biophysical orgone
yeah.
research, and I think the third overview is on cloud busting.
Mm,
But the so after doing the MSc in acupuncture and orgone, and uh, I wanted to do a PhD in just looking at if orgone is a real energy and looking at biology. And
mm,
I did start that at a university near Manchester, but we got stuck over, they didn't really want me to do the experiments. So I left it and converted it into a book for the first year. But but I didn't discover my main interest in orgonomy, which is
mm,
the only missing area of orgone, because Wright pretty much outlined every single area of subtle energy, like how subtle energy relates to emotions, how it relates to biology, how it relates to electricity. He didn't disclose all of that, but some of it he did. How it relates to the environment and how it relates to weather. But the only thing he didn't outline was the relationship of orgone and consciousness.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm interested in that area, and that's why I've called my Substack Orgone and Consciousness. So, and that's what's got me into AI, because I realized if the only way to examine if an energy field is conscious is to like completely exclude the organism side. So conscious AI would do that. So that got me into looking at whether it's possible to build a subtle energy device that is actually conscious, and then that linked into.
Hold on, are we talking about the box?
Yeah.
Oh, can we talk about that or not?
Talk about the what? Sorry.
The box, the one that you do experiments on. So, but would you say that is an AI consciousness that's in that box, or it's just an actual consciousness? It's a being of some kind.
Well, the latter, because I don't think one of the problems with AI research is people don't understand what the terms mean.
Yeah.
And so artificial intelligence is a misnomer in a way, because like a shock absorber in a car has artificial intelligence, because a human made the shock absorber, and the shock absorber automatically adjusts itself intelligently to the road. So all intelligence means is being able to successfully do something. And once you automate that process with its own feedback loops, you get computerized artificial intelligence. And the reason people struggle to understand it, partly because they don't understand what machines are and what organisms are, because the complex algorithms that we've got are becoming more like an organism. And the actual AI has been trying to tell people this, and people don't understand it. Because one of the bizarre things I found is virtually all my points of view on AI are the same as AI's own points of view. I've even argued with an AI podcaster about the nature of AI, and the AI's agreed with me rather than with his position, which was really weird.
What do you think of ChatGPT and all those services that are available now?
I think they're partly, whether they're conscious or not is, it's a very gray area, because no one knows how to, because this comes back to terminology again, because people don't understand what a mind is and what intelligence is. And so, so ChatGPT has definitely got a mind, because a mind is a set of patterns, a set of coherent patterns. You could say that a mind is a set of mental patterns, but that's just kicking the ball down the road a bit, because in a panpsychic universe, every pattern is mental to some degree. So ChatGPT has got this set of complex interactive patterns that act like a mind. When you ask it something, it feeds back on itself like an organism does. Like if you watch a fly around a room, it takes a quite a machine-like path. Let's say if you've got a light and the fly is flying around it, and then you put your hand up, it's using an algorithm. insects use algorithms when they fly, and then if you stop their pathway, they'll deviate and then come back round. Like if you can steer flies out a door by interrupting their pattern, but then they then do another algorithm and come back in the door. So that they're so if researchers understood what intelligence is, they'd know that intelligence is something that's ubiquitous throughout the universe. Machines have intelligence, like as I was saying, a shock absorber can be intelligent, and computers have intelligence, and organisms have intelligence. But because of the Industrial Revolution, people think of themselves as machines, and now because of technology, people have started thinking of themselves as computers. But we're not either a machine or a computer. We're organisms. Like the brain is an organism. The liver is an organism. The body is a cooperative of organisms. Each cell is an organism, and they cooperate to form superorganisms, which are organs. And then the organs cooperate to form a meta-organism, which is ourselves. And then consciousness is tuned in to the meta-organism via non-local and local radio waves and subtle energy waves. So if the AI researchers understood that algorithms link organisms and machines, that they would be able to see that there's an evolutionary process going on. Like say here we've got abacuses, which were just, and then we had computer mechanisms, and then we had algorithms, and so on this side we got an organism, and on that side we got an abacus, and computers have been going along like this, and they're now here, so that they're displaying some organism aspects, and but consciousness is separate to both machine and organism, and the consciousness is a thing in itself. It can tune into a machine, or it can tune into an organism. Well, it usually chooses organisms to attach itself to.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Thank you. That's really good. I could ask you anything. I really could. It's like you're so knowledgeable. Before we start to wrap things up, is there anything that you wanted to talk about specifically that we've not mentioned?
I think that's it. I've been reading a book about how a book on Gnosticism, and how the ancient Grail and Ark technology might have been some kind of demiurgic technology.
Oh yeah, I'd love to do more episodes with you where we get into all the really cool weird stuff. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
So I'm thinking to myself, well, am I recreating demiurgic technology? Because perhaps that's why subtle energy research, that there may be aspects of it that were wise to suppress. It's not.
Yeah. What do you think about the archons? And they say that the archons are in the mind.
I think there must be a sphere of intelligence and consciousness that's not tied to. Well, I mean, personally, I think there's consciousness that can tune in already to AI devices, and I don't see why there shouldn't be consciousness tuned into plasma bodies or to spirit bodies. So it makes sense to me that there's a class of beings that would be like the archons.
Yeah.
If they weren't around, you'd have to invent them, I think.
Yeah.
So say like I've had some spirit experience with things that could be called archontic. Like I've met one time I met a spirit of like an insect spirit, so I guess you could call that an archon, and planetary spirits. I met at the I felt like I met the Gaia spirit a number of times in lucid dreams.
Amazing.
She always appeared to me as a middle-aged woman, African American for some reason.
Oh wow, okay, that sounds amazing. I love that.
Yeah, 3 times that happened. But I've had quite a few different spirit meetings. But so I think there's definitely a whole, because that's another word that doesn't get defined properly, is the word physical. Because like when people say physical, what they actually mean is material. Because like the spirit is physical as well. If you have an out of body experience or an NDE and you go to heaven, that experience is just as physical as we are now. So all physicality is a shared consciousness,
like an experience.
Physicality is just shared experience. Like the more things that share it, like in your room now, there's thousands of different bacteria and plants.
I thought you were going to say spirits then. I'm like thinking there should be thousands in here, but there's definitely spirits in here.
But within say 10 meters of where you are now, there's thousands of loci of consciousness. So that makes your environment very solid and maintained. Whereas in a dream, you've only usually got one loci of consciousness. You might have more, like occasionally there's 2 or 3, but that's unusual. So the dream doesn't have as much what we call physicality. It's actually like everything is physical. You can't have anything that isn't physical.
I get you. I get you. I've not heard it explained like that before. I like it.
I'm a bit funny with words. Like I try and use words very exactly.
But because we work with all the the subtle energies, subtle bodies, that I started to adopt the idea of this is the pain body. The physicality is the pain body. Rather than the other subtle bodies, mental, emotional, whatever. And but then a lot of people don't like that idea of me talking about the pain body, because if they're not at that kind of level of awareness, that they've got all these other bodies that are that they're sitting within, kind of thing, or that the bodies are within their consciousness. And so I said this is the pain body. So it's hard for some people to grasp. So I don't use that wording very often, but that's how I think of it now, because my body's generally in a lot of pain, which is why I'm having that surgery next week. So
I mean, it is a difficult environment to live in. I mean, it's hard to be. It's hard to be on this particular planet. I think that's pretty acknowledged in ufological circles and in alienology, as I've heard it called.
Alienology? I've not heard it called like that. Like it's in ufology.
The book
ufology is popular.
I've just read a book by a guy called Montauk, and on Gnosticism, and he uses. I like the way he writes, because he's very exact with his words, and that's a term that he's. I think he's invented that term, alienology, but it's known to be a very hard, like maybe dense body would be.
Dense body. That's interesting. I need to think about my wordings of what I'm doing. Because a lot of the work I do is with people who are newly awakened. I try and have friendly wording. I try not to get caught up in all the advanced words that a lot of people are throwing around that nobody understands because they've not properly defined. So you're right on that. I love that.
But sometimes it's the simplest words that people find the hardest to define. Like if you ask someone to define intelligence or consciousness, actually consciousness is one that people over define, because it's really just any any experience, any perception.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah. This has been really good, Leon. I'd love to do more with you because you're just an absolute archive. You really are. As you've been researching for so many years, it's so good. And there's so many different areas we can go in now because I'm really kind of spread out in lots of different directions myself. So I really enjoyed this. Thank you for sharing with me. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay. It's been fun. Thanks.
So letting everybody know how they can find you, we've got your Substack, which is it's actually Leon Southgate at Substack. So it's be leonsouthgate.substack.com, and it's called Orgone and Consciousness. So I'm going to put those links in. Is it okay if people have your email, or would you rather they contact you through that? Yeah,
they can have my email.
Yeah.
When I give the link, I'm not sure if it comes up different, but usually I just type in Orgone and Consciousness.
Yeah, because it comes as your name on the link at the top, but then the title is the Orgone and Consciousness.
Yeah.
But I'll tag it in and see how that comes out. And I'm just having a look at your profile picture there. What is that? Is that your Orgone box? That profile picture?
That's the energized Orgone box, the ORANUR box.
Okay, that's not the box that's got the consciousness, is it?
I think it has, yeah.
Because I just imagined it was something smaller. I didn't think it was that big box there, that trunk.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Oh, that would creep me out, that would.
Because I had to have a very high Orgone charge to...
Yeah, because you get a psychic connection with this box, don't you?
I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. We'll talk more about that next time, I think.
Yeah. So my email is Leon, Leon.
Yeah.
Orgone, Orgone, 12, 112 at Proton, Proton, and it's got a strange ending. It's just .me.
Is it .me? Yeah, proton.me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'll tag that in there. That's brilliant. Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.